Hello everyone and welcome to Pompolic Wars Call for Heroes. And this game is an action RPG, but it's a linear action RPG where you go from level to level, and the objective of each level is to collect things, collect items called Dark Souls, and after you collect them all, the level is finished. I was drawn to this game years ago because I was kind of surprised at the overwhelmingly negative reception it got. It just looked like a pretty normal 90s style action RPG to me. And in a lot of ways it is that, but in some ways it isn't. Let's go over the ways it is not that. First of all, in order to complete each level, you have to scour the entire map looking for collectibles. And you don't have a mini-map in case you haven't noticed. And it's not like the idea of having to collect these Dark Souls to finish the level is unworkable. It's just that the placement of the Dark Souls is very bad. Like, if you were to place the Dark Souls in such a way they were a reward for a challenging combat section or at the end of a gauntlet or, you know, in visually interesting places, that would be perfectly fine. But they're usually just tucked away in corners. So you end up having to look over every nook and cranny of the map for these things like you're playing a collectathon. And all the while, the enemies are going to be spawning in like crazy. And I mean spawning in like absolute fucking crazy. Like, you have to be constantly fearful of where the enemies are going to come from. And see, like that spawned right behind me. Luckily, it was just one guy. Usually it's many. Usually it's several. You'll notice that while I'm playing this, I'm incredibly overly hesitant with everything I do. And this is on a practiced run of the game, after I've memorized where the people spawn, or at least tried to memorize to the best of my ability. And the developers made the mistake of including a level editor in this game, so you can see exactly the way they made their levels, and if you want, you can edit the levels. And you can see that the people that made this game just did not understand game design at all. Like, you can see which flags trigger enemies to spawn, how many enemies are spawning where they spawn, and why they spawn where they spawn. And you can adjust all of those factors if you want, and it would be very easy to use this game's level editor to make the game better. Like, you don't usually get opportunities like this to see how the game was put together and how easily it could have been fixed if they had a better idea of game design. Better character progression, a more fair difficulty curve, you know, enemies that you can actually defeat without being afraid for your life every 3 seconds. These things, all perfectly fixable using the in-game level editor. And on top of that, there are some things that you can't fix with the level editor that just seem like decisions that most people would find incredibly frustrating. Everything you do uses mana in this game. Like, even your most basic melee attacks. So, what you have is a game where you have to scour these maze-like maps for collectibles, otherwise you cannot finish the level. There's a timer at the top constantly counting down, and if the timer runs out before you get all the collectibles, you lose the level. The enemies spawn in like mad, sometimes behind you, and in intentionally unfair places, it seems, based on the level editor you can access. This game is just madness from a game design standpoint, and I really can't understand how someone looked at the finished product and said that the design was alright. But at the same time, I know this game wasn't made to hurt people, or made for sadistic reasons, because it's just not. It's too generic for that. If you want to make a game to hurt people, you make stuff like Getting Over It, or I Want to Be the Guy. This is just someone gravely mistaking how game design works. And like I said, it's not even like it's unfixable. If you spend enough time in the level editor, you could turn this into a functional, enjoyable game. I mean, it is technically functional, but I mean functional in that most people would be able to consume it without, you know, hating themselves or the developer. Like, I feel like if I went through this game level by level and changed the level design and item placement to things I thought were more workable, and then re-uploaded the game and pretended it was the original thing, I could get people to appreciate the game a lot more than if I shared it in its default state. And that's just really fucking sad. It feels like this game was destined for pain. Like, to cause pain on every conceivable level. Not just the consumer, but the people that funded the game, the developers, because their passion turned into, you know, this, the pain I'm experiencing right now because I have to look at this and recognize that someone that really loved video game development and game design made this, and this is how it came out. It just caused pain for everyone, and it's not even intentional. If it were intentional, I could laugh it off and be like, "Ha, you got me," but it's not. It's not this bad on purpose. I wanted to be the first person to record a full playthrough of this game, but I couldn't. I made it to the most maze-like level I've ever seen in any action RPG, and I just couldn't do it anymore, because in addition to the things I described previously, this game also has the normal bullshit action RPG stuff from PC games. Like, you know what I'm talking about, fantasy action RPG bullshit. This game has all of that in addition to the other things I described. And I wanted so bad to love this game and be the first person to upload a playthrough, and I wanted to bring this game out from darkness, out from obscurity, but it's kind of easy to tell why no one's played through this one. If the level design were fixed, it would be generic but fun, you know, and that's fine. But it wouldn't exactly inspire people to play through it. But as it is, it's just pain. Generic and pain, and that's not a good combination. If anyone wants to try their hand at this game, if they think they can actually finish it, or if they think they can make better levels than the developer, it comes with a level editor. Like, I've messed around with the final boss level, and I've seen the tricks and bullshit the developers put in these levels, and I just couldn't take it anymore. Giving me a window into how bullshit the game was, that just made things much worse. It's one thing to suffer through an unfair maze-like level with dumb, unfair enemy respawn locations, but when you can go into a level editor, zoom out, and see what the level looks like and where all the bullshit happens and how it's connected, that's just a new level of, oh god, they fucked me. And I can only assume the reason the game is like this is because it was an indie studio and the testers are people that were intimately familiar with the level layout. So, you know, they didn't know how a normal person would react to playing this game. Like, you're not seeing a normal person play it right now either. This is, like, my 5th attempt at this level. After I tried to memorize the spawning locations and where all the Dark Souls are located and how to optimally not get fucked, this game was almost ported to the Wii. Actually, it may have been ported to the Wii. I can't tell if it actually was. I can't find a copy of it anywhere, but someone said they tried running it on Dolphin. But, man, if this ever did get released on the Wii, I'd love to have seen that in stores. But yeah, this game, someone tried to make a good fantasy action RPG and failed spectacularly. Failed in such a spectacular way on so many levels that it's honestly remarkable. And that's Palm Pollock Wars.